All right, boys, let's go. This is episode number 10 of the Deconstruction Podcast. We hit 10. This show is brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest way to manage and grow your construction company. I actually want to read an email I got from a client the other day. I thought this is why we do what we do. So this is what the email says. I just want to send you a note of thanks for introducing me to your platform and making it affordable for the small to medium contractor. Up to this point, I've been doing all the estimating, project, service billing, and job costing, which takes up a good portion of my working hours. I see your platform saving me at least 5 to 6 hours a week and will help with our cash flow as we'll be able to get our invoices out quicker. So this is one, I love that email. We get a ton of these, and I love getting these because this is why we do what we do. We're truly in this industry to provide an impact to contractors around the world. And so, wanted to share that. Love hearing that from clients.
Shout out to that client.
Yeah, big shout out. Actually, you showed that to us when we were on our way to do someone else's podcast, and it put the biggest smiles on our faces. So big shout out to that guy.
Yeah, love it. So if you're listening and you're in the market for software, you find yourself boggled down with admin and invoicing quotes, check out jobtable.com, sign up for a free trial, and it could truly make your life a little easier. So check it out. Boys, let's get into it. A few topics we wanted to discuss today. It's December. Everyone's gearing up for the holidays. I know you guys are prepping for your Christmas party, which I'm still waiting for the invite. But at this time of the year, a lot of companies are planning. And well, actually, I see two cases. I see a lot of companies either planning and strategizing for the new year, or the companies that are kind of just kicking back and can't wait for the holiday to start. So, which side of the coin are you guys on here?
Johnny, kick it off.
We're definitely we're swamped right now. We're trying to kind of wrap up everything that needs to be wrapped up before the holidays hit. A lot of clients, they want to close up permits. They want to get to a certain position on the job. But for us, we look at the holidays as it's a good little break, but we're really gearing up for 2025, right? So I know everybody's going to look at the holidays differently. I know, all of us have families and, little kids, which I want to say that's what I'm looking forward to the most, spending time, with the family. But at the same time, we got to look at what 2025 looks like, kind of reflect on 2024, which me and Charlie have been doing a lot, figuring out what we've done well, what we haven't done so well. And we're trying to basically fix anything we didn't do well going into 2025 so that we can start the year off with a bang, right? So we're trying to secure as much work as we can. I know we've talked about, the economy, kind of like the uncertainty in it. So what we've noticed is everything that we have an opportunity to bid and to price, we're kind of jumping on it to ensure that at least, the first half of 2025, the guys are going to be very busy. And by the looks of it, I think we've done that.
Absolutely. I think for me, the end of the year is always very bittersweet. It's I look at all the jobs that we did, and it's a good time to reflect. Like Johnny said, you look at all the good things you did, but also the things that didn't go your way, and you kind of reflect on how you can correct those things. And when it comes to 2025, I think we're just kind of chomping at the bit already for 2025 because we've already secured those jobs, months back. So we're already doing these jobs in our mind, even though the year is not even over. And I think any strong business should have that mentality that you hit the ground running as soon as it's 2025. It's not like, it's a new year. Like, you're already kind of in it as soon as it starts. But I think it's important to reflect and to kind of recognize the things that you can improve on. you know, whether it be, you know, relationships with clients, your employees, you know, how did jobs get done? Were there mistakes made? Were they corrected? How were they corrected? All of the above. So definitely bittersweet for me.
Yeah. See, I'm a big believer in, you know, goal setting, right? And having just reachable targets, right? It's easy to, and I think that's it's one of these things that's oftentimes are easier said than done, right? And a lot of people don't have a structure on like goal setting and strategizing. And so I'm a believer, you have to have reachable targets. As any business owner, you know, it's very easy to get caught up in your day to day of just being busy, right? And like, you know, feels like you're doing everything, but like you're not doing anything at the same time, just because like you're running around, you're being busy, but like, you know, what are you working towards? You got to be working towards something. So I feel this is a good time of the year to kind of take a step back, like you guys are saying, and kind of just recalibrate yourself in terms of, you know, how you want to position yourself, what like actual goals do you want to reach? And I think like how you define a goal is also, you know, very important. It has to be something, I think, very specific. Is it like a revenue target for a year? Do you want to grow your employees to a certain amount? Have certain net profit? Like it has to be something tangible that you work towards. So,
and it has to be realistic. That's one of my.
It has to be realistic.
Exactly. That's
100%.
One of my biggest things, right? I talk to a lot of these guys. You know, okay, I did 1 million this year. I want to do 2 million next year. Okay, great. How are you going to achieve that, right? What plans and processes and procedures do you have in place to do that? What opportunity do you have to allow you to reach that, right? I was just speaking to somebody earlier this week, and that's what they told me. They said, you know, next year I want to double my revenue. And, you know, he's one guy with 2 guys under him, right? So it's a 3-man company. And I asked him, I said, so have you started looking to hire people in order to, you know, get, you know, double your revenue? And he was like, no, you know, I'm just looking at ways of how I can double my revenue. And I kind of broke the news to him where I was like, well, were you busy this year, you know, to reach 1 million? And he goes, yeah, we were super busy. I go, so you're super busy with 3 guys. You want to double your revenue, which means, you know, truth be told, you're going to run more guys in order to achieve that. And it kind of hit him, right? And he didn't know what to say. And he started asking me about
it sounds like a pipe dream, right?
Yeah. He said, well, I don't want to say a pipe dream. I know the guy has it in him. It's just, again, it's setting realistic goals. And that's kind of what I put in place, what I try to explain to him. You know, I always say, don't put the cart before the horse. I'm a strong believer that you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. A lot of guys try to go from crawling to running. And look, some people can achieve it, right? You see companies blow up overnight. But the reality is there's a lot of growing pains involved in that. And I want to say, you know, in a red seal trade, in order to grow your revenue like that, you have to have kind of skilled people in place. So if you want to double your revenue in a year and you haven't even started looking for new employees to manage, you know, double the workflow, essentially, yeah, it's just, it's not a realistic goal. Is it achievable? 100%. But I always like setting realistic goals. And if I blow those goals out of the water, so let's say, you know, we did 1 million and I say, okay, I want to do, you know, 1.3, right? So I want to grow it by 30%. And we end up finishing the year at 1.7. I just blew my target out of the water. Then I'll reflect at this time of the year, see how I did that and try to mimic that for next year and kind of hone in on the things that didn't go so well so you can mitigate that, right? Because also, too, you can grow your revenue, but if you grow your revenue and your expenses triple, was it worth it, right? So you got to, it's a very fine line you got to walk. And that's why I say in December, I find a lot of guys, they're looking forward to the holidays, which, you know, I am as well. But I also like to take this time to reflect and try to look at what's on the horizon and how January 1st we can hit the ground running.
Yeah, but also, when it comes to goal setting, you have to go way deeper than that, right? You can't just say, okay, yeah, the goal is I'm going to double my revenue, but okay, what's required now to double my revenue? You mentioned employees, right? If you have 3 employees, you might have to double it. But that's one part. What if you're, maybe to double your revenue, you have to now estimate or quote double the amount of projects. So how do you get those projects now? Do you have to maybe do some marketing, advertising, pick up more phones? Do you have to generate more leads? So you really have to reverse engineer that goal and make it attainable into sub steps.
Break it down.
Right? You can't just say I'm going to double my revenue. That kind of is a pipe dream. It's like,
That's what
does
I
that
meant.
even mean?
That's what I meant by pipe dream. Anybody can speak words, right? I've done it before. One of the things that I've struggled with in the past, especially leading up to the Christmas holidays, is the scheduling, where everything is crammed, and it just felt like for years we were just crossing that finish line right at the final hour. You know what I mean? Just in the nick of time, a photo finish every single year. So consciously, I had to really kind of break down every single every little step. So leading up to the holidays, we can now break that schedule down to ensure that, the week before Christmas, all the jobs are done and we leave ourselves a week just to kind of do cleanup. But that's something that starts in, mid-November, early November, right? To kind of make sure everything is tight. So it's how are you, so you have a goal. I don't want to be in the situation anymore where, guys end up having to work over the holidays because of my oversight on scheduling, right? So how do I fix it? It's like, okay, let's pay a lot more attention to these jobs in November leading up to Christmas, make sure that the right people are there, we get the jobs done. Obviously, there's some things that are out of your control, but for the most part, the planning is everything. Words are words. You have to put the plan into action.
Yeah, and another reason why I think goals is so important is because, like I mentioned before, right? It's as a business owner, it's very easy to have what I call shiny object syndrome, right? You're constantly looking for the next thing, right? For example, let's say, you come across an article, it's like, oh, this plumbing company generated $2 million on Facebook ads. And you're like, oh shit, I have to do Facebook ads now. Or then 2 weeks later, you see the next thing, right? So it's very easy to bounce around. Whereas, so having a goal that's in front of, and ideally writing down a goal, having it on paper, I feel that does something to your brain. It helps you really absorb it and internalize it in a way, by the action of writing it down, visually seeing it. But just so having the goal, it just helps you stay streamlined on your day to day, instead of feeling like you're running around with with your chicken with your head cut off, right? Whereas for me, and I'm guilty of this too, right? But what a goal does for me, when I'm doing a certain project or a task, I'm asking myself, is what I'm doing here, or what I'm about to do, is this thing going to help me reach my goal? And if the answer is no, I'm either scrapping it or just not prioritizing it. So it really helps you stay focused and, in your lane, because that's the only way you're going to reach your goal. You just got to attack it.
You have to attack it. Now, in construction, I'll speak for construction. Sometimes there are things that you're doing that is required that, has nothing to do with the goal, let's just say. But if you have that goal and you have the roadmap on how to get there, sometimes you'll get tied up on, some bullshit that is just required, like I said. But if you have that roadmap laid out, the steps on how to grow that business for the next year and what you did wrong and what you want to kind of fix, having it in front of you always kind of puts you back on track, right? We're all guilty of it. We'll all have a goal, and, you'll start climbing the ladder on that goal to reach your target, and then something happens and, kind of goes stale. But if you have that roadmap with realistic goals in front of you, it's kind of a motivation to put you back on track, right?
Yeah, and that goes without saying. Any business, you're gonna pivot. Things are gonna change throughout the year, and That's why, for our business, we come to the table every quarter, right? And to kind of see where we're at and readjust, because things change, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And a good example of a process, you actually taught me this, Casa, is when we were doing hiring for Jobtable, how you introduced me to Trello. I was absolutely blown away. And anybody that doesn't know what Trello is, it's kind of like a card system that's used for anything really, but we used it for the hiring process, where you can kind of put all of your candidates into a row, and then you can kind of weed them out into different columns and keep things organized. And just that alone, I use that process for iPlum now, and it's actually saved me countless hours. Right. So it just goes to show you the effectiveness of a software and what it can do in a business, whether it's a software company, whether it's a construction company, but it can really boost your efficiency to new levels, which will free up your time to kind of, create and manage goals that you may have for the following years. Because like I said, words are words, but it's not just, you have to have a goal and then you have to plan for it. You kind of have to break it down and, how you're going to achieve that goal. But where I find most people stumble is, where are you going to find the time to even do this, right? A lot of the reality, a lot of these guys are on the tools. They're jumping in and out of their trucks. They're trying to do their invoices. So where are they getting the time to sit down and say, okay, here we go. I'm going to fucking plan for the next year and, how I'm going to get to these goals. The reality is you need help, right? Whether it be through the helping hand of employees, through hiring or through a software. You definitely need help, and the software is something that can definitely help you achieve that to get your.
And that's a good
back.
point, right? We talk about goals, and like the easy answer is, I was like, okay, I'm going to double my revenue. It's like, okay, now I have to hire more guys, right? That's like, kind of, straight and narrow way to think. But the reality is, that's where reverse engineering it comes into play. And like you said, Charlie, like, to me, the easiest one is like, how do I gain some hours back, right? And like, using a software is one way to implement some sort of easy system, like a Jobtable, where you can literally, like that client who just sent that email saying they're saving 5 to 6 hours a week. Now, those 5 to 6 hours a week, guess what? Now I can like hit the phones, do marketing, be able to send more quotes out. Like, that's, you don't need more guys to do that. You just have to be more efficient and work smarter.
Yeah, and what I would encourage to all of our listeners is, maybe this weekend or this holiday, just be open-minded. Look at any tool that can help you save time, because just like that email explains, 5 to 6 hours a week, right? That's just one admin person. It's a full day, right? So for people that say they don't have time, well, if you implement a software that's going to take you a couple hours to learn, and again, you have the holiday season now, where you'll have a break, and I understand that you want to spend time with family. Trust me, I got 3 little kids at home, but you should also carve out some time to see what you can implement, starting in January. A lot of people, they have the goals, I want to lose weight, I want to be healthier. Okay, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to sign up to a gym. I'm going to, buy healthier groceries. I'm going to save money, so I'm going to stop doing, I'm going to stop buying coffee every morning. Okay. Now, what are you going to do for the business? You definitely, you want to grow it. So what time are you going to take throughout the holidays to look at some new tools that you can implement starting January 1st, right? So what I encourage everybody listening to, again, is just be open-minded, right? I know a lot of us, we're very old school, pen and paper. We know it works for us. Not saying that you can't get the job done like that, but if you can save hours every week, every month, all year, it's going to do nothing but help your business.
And that's a big pet peeve of mine, right? Is like, I'm going to start this January 1st. It's like, dude, like, just start it now.
Yeah.
Like, why are you waiting January 1st? Like, I hate that. I can't stand that.
Something important to note too, because we're talking a lot about saving time and saving hours. But I think something that's just like equally as important, And you see this a lot is guys, they have no idea where they're making money in their company. So, you can have one guy in a truck, he looks at his financials at the end of the year and he'll say, oh, I made $100,000, amazing. But he has no idea where that $100,000 came from. Was it from the service calls that he did? Was it, a mix of the commercial projects that he did? He really doesn't know. So above saving the time is actually the project management and the job costing, which is actually so crucial, because if you look at a guy who actually starts tracking every penny that's coming in and out of the company, at the end of the year, it's a lot easier for that guy to say, I've had tremendous success with my service division, right? That's where I'm making 70% of my income. So now, rather than hiring 10 more guys to put on commercial, which is bringing in, let's say 10% or 20% of the money, I'm actually going to focus more. And that's a decision now he can make. And he's got like actual facts to back it up. And he can make a conscious, intelligent decision to beef up his service department now that he knows that that's where the money's coming from, right? So I think that's just as important, because that's great. You want to, you have a plan. You also don't want to fund the wrong idea and put your money in the wrong place. And that's something that we talk about too with the software, right? There's so many aspects, from advertising to development to design, but there's only so many resources that you have, or there's only so many hours in a day. So it's really being conscious of what is the priority? What are we gonna focus on now, right? And you have to have a decision-making process that has some intelligence behind it, not just throwing money blindly at things.
That's such a good point. Like, when you don't have awareness, like on your business and like your data, like where your revenue's coming from, like you mentioned, it's impossible to figure out and decide on where to grow or where to allocate your resources or where to focus on. If you made $1 million last year and like you said, you don't know what came from service, what came from projects, like how do you make an informed decision like that? And another point is very important as well. And I think this applies to any business, right? Sales is sales, marketing is marketing. These are universal concepts for any business. And there's like an infinite number of ways to do sales and do marketing, right? Pick up the phone, online, Facebook, Google, go down the list, partnerships, affiliates, all this stuff, right? So back to having shiny object syndrome, I think especially as a small business where resources are limited, maybe you're bootstrapping, things are tight, I think it's much more beneficial and impactful if you focus on literally just one channel. Focus all your time and energy on that one marketing sales channel. And even if it's the wrong channel, if you're doing one channel compared to 5 or 6, and if you're just doing that one, and even if it's the wrong one, I bet you'll still be better. You'll still be ahead with that channel than doing 6 at the same time, even if it's the wrong channel.
Very true. Very true. I see that happen a lot. I know another company that actually just dropped doing, new builds because they finally ran some data, using Jobtable, because with their job costing and seeing, how much contract value compared to how much they spent. And this gentleman, he basically said that 2025, he's shifting gears into service, right? Because he finds service is such a high margin, quick in and out, very repetitive business. And he's noticed his client list has grown exponentially while he's doing service. When he was doing custom homes, he found that he was just working for a few general contractors, and if those general contractors are not busy, he essentially has no work. So I thought that was an impactful kind of feedback that he gave me, because he said if he wasn't using Jobtable as his software, he wouldn't have had that data. And he just noticed that he was making a lot more money through service. It was a lot easier to manage and maintain now that, he has work orders, timesheets, job costing, and everything like that. And it transformed his business. So now, in 2025, he's hitting the road running on, strictly service, right? And that's how he wants to grow his business. And I thought that was, something really powerful to share, because that's what a software can do. Now, this same gentleman, he was very skeptical. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for years. Even when we started Jobtable and we took it to market a couple years ago, he was the guy, oh, I'm fine. My paper carbon copies, they do well. When I invoice, my clients want to see an invoice a certain way. Like, you heard every excuse, right? And it's just like, yeah, no problem. And then finally, he just ended up giving it a shot. And look, like, I think he's like 7 months in, and now he's transforming his business and literally taking it down another path, because he was open-minded enough to try something new. He took the time to learn it, which was only about an hour, and has transformed his business now, where he has a totally different path that he never thought he would have taken. And the only way to take that path is because he was open-minded to try something that's going to save him time. What he tried was giving him the data right in front of his face, so he can see how his business is doing in each category, right? Like you said, Costa, he was doing many different industries. And then he found that the service for him is what made him the most money. He noticed that's the one he likes to manage. And now, even to the guys that he has, he started noticing, I need to get service guys. A lot of my guys are install guys. I need service guys now, right? So it's very powerful. It's very powerful to see, we can say it all we want, but when you start hearing it from other people, like that email you shared, talking to so many people, and you see how it's transforming their business, it just gets back to, like, guys, I know we're dinosaurs. I know the way it's been done for, decades. It works. Not to say it doesn't work, but does it work efficiently, right? That's the biggest thing. So what I want everybody to do that's listening is, again, getting back to it, just be open-minded. This holiday season, if you haven't done it, just take, a day, a few hours, research some software, implement something that is going to save you time, money, give you data, almost like, like a business manager, right? Something that can tell you how you're doing at any given point, show you how you're doing on this job, how you're doing on a service call. And you never know, there might be something that you're doing, and it's sitting right under your nose. You just haven't spotted it yet, right?
Yeah, that's true. I have a ton of these conversations, just like that one you shared about, growth and what to do and all this stuff. And 9 out of 10 times, the first thing I ask that person is, okay, what's working the best right now, right? Which part of your business? And the problem is, no one really knows the answer to that. So, but if you had that awareness, it's like, okay, yeah, what's working the best is service. And it's like, okay, then if you already kind of figured that out, now, like, double down on that. Focus on the service or whatever it is. But when you can't answer, like, what's working right now, yeah, that's a big problem.
Huge.
Yeah. So yeah, goals. What else with goals? Anything else you guys want to add here?
Honestly, just to sum it up, I have a great respect for any kind of entrepreneur. Like, anybody that's taken the plunge and decided to go off on their own, has my respect. Me and Johnny did a long time ago. Costa,
100%.
You're in the same boat. And I've always summed up entrepreneurship to a very simple question. And the only question you need to answer yes to is, do you have a good product, right? We've talked about this so many times, and it really only comes down to that. Like, do you have a good product? So a good example is, if you're a roofer, right? You provide people with roofs, you have a good product. That's the only question that you need to answer yes to. Beyond that, whether that business fails or succeeds is entirely up to you, right? Now that you know that you have a good product. So if you fail, it's either because you didn't get enough jobs, you didn't do them properly, you didn't know how to manage your time. So an endless, amount of reasons why the business could fail is entirely up to you. So don't you want to give yourself the best possible opportunity to be a successful business, and understand like we talked about, where all your time is being spent, where all the money is going, it's a no-brainer. I used to be a dinosaur that barely even opened up a laptop or a computer, and now I'm beyond shocked that the majority of people aren't using any kind of software. It blows my mind, because I realize now how much time was wasted in the past not using anything.
You know what? I actually partly disagree with what you just said on the product. I think that you can be an entrepreneur, a business owner with a shitty product, but have the grittiness, the determination, and the confidence, and you'll probably, I'll bet on that person to do better than the person.
To a well.
But with that being said, that will only get you so far. To have the longevity and
obviously,
sustainability.
You could be a scammer.
You know, for that window, you're starting out. I'll take the guy with the grittiness and determination all day with a shitty product.
Yeah, well, obviously what I mean by that is like, I could sell you a fake credit card and I have a shitty product, and if I'm a good salesman, obviously I can make a business out of it, but eventually the cops will be knocking on my door.
No, even not bad. Like, even from in the software world, right? The amount of companies that I see with truly like when I say shitty product, it's like, it's not a scam. It's maybe like a 2 out of 10. It does the job. It might be shit. Yeah. But if they're like gritty and like they're banging the phones, they're selling, like they're still gonna do well. Like, I'm not saying they're a scam.
What would you consider a shitty product? It may be in comparison. Like, if it's still a product that provides a service, it may not be as good of a service as other softwares. But if it's providing something, and the value is good for the money that they're charging, to me that's still a good product. Like, I don't mean like in comparison to other competitors, right? Like, I just mean like, I can't sell you a piece of shit on a stick. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's
that's
obviously, right?
That's just, now you're like, that's just like, whether unethical, illegal, like whatever.
I'm just saying, like when it really comes down to it, like everything falls on your shoulders as an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
you know, like what I'm trying to say is like you cannot blame anybody else for your shortfalls, right? And everything is in your hands. You control your own destiny. So why not give yourself the best possible chance at success?
Exactly.
Yeah, an entrepreneur. I say it to everybody. An entrepreneur, just like Charlie said, everything's on you, right? If it fails, it's on you. If it does well, it's on you. So anybody who gets into business, no matter what the business is, it's all in your hands. However you want it to go, however much money you want to make, it's all up to you, right? So if you, like you said, Costa, if you have that grit, that determination, that drive, and you have, me and Charlie use this a lot. There's no plan Bs, right? There's one plan, and that plan is to succeed. You're gonna have your ups and your downs. I remember I remember seeing this picture, and it was like a graph, and the graph says, what people think success looks like, right? And it's just like, an arrow just going up on an angle, right? And then what real success looks like, and it was just like scribbly lines everywhere, right? And it's true, right? Like, as an entrepreneur, there's many ups and downs, right? It's like a roller coaster ride, but it's being able to pivot, right? It's being able to turn on a dime. It's being able to self-assess, right? And look at everything you're doing and be self-critical, so that you can see where your downfalls are, so you know where you need to improve, right? And that's why I'm kind of sticking to this topic today, where, because I know we are in December, and I know everybody, even though, I know we don't really believe in it, like you said, January 1st, new year, new me, like, fuck that, start it today. But for those people that like that, because I know a lot of people like to, start the new year off with a new plan, a new procedure, some like new goals. I would just encourage everybody, again, be open-minded, right? Be open-minded. Look at anything that could potentially help your business, because a lot of times with these smaller businesses, even medium-sized businesses that are still looking to grow, the answer is right underneath your nose. The spotlight's just not on it, right? And I bring it back to this guy with the service company, right? He's been around for decades. He's been doing custom homes, really good at what he does. He did some service, but because he implemented a software and he had the data to show him what he's making on one compared to the other, and I think he started using Jobtable about 7 or 8 months ago. He's been in business for almost 30 years, and 7 months gave him the picture, like I said, right underneath your nose, right? Where if you're looking to grow and make certain margins that you're looking to make, the data was there, and it kind of gave him his path, right? So now his goal after almost 30 years came from something that he implemented 7 months ago. Right. So again, that's where I'm going to stick on that topic. I know I sound like a broken record today, but be open-minded, guys. It's the holiday season. You're going to, a lot of guys, they're going to have a week and a half off, maybe 2 weeks. A lot of guys are kicking back. If you are doing that, just be very mindful to be open-minded and look at any tool that can help your business, anything.
Yeah. So, and some good points, right? Like, yeah, as an entrepreneur, or just in life, like, you are responsible for your own outcomes. So with that being said, like, try and put yourself in the best possible position to get the best possible outcome. And what does that mean, right? Learn from others that are successful like you guys and see, what are you guys doing? What are you implementing? What software are you using? Maybe I should check that out too. Like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel here.
No.
Right? You can learn so much from others that have already done it. It's been tried, tested. There's no testing involved. Just friggin' do what others have done. Like, it's such an easy thing to do. And, back to your thing, no plan Bs, right? That's a motto I've lived by forever. It's like, what is a plan B, right? To me, it's, if I decide I'm going to do something, whether it's a business, whether it's something else, if I've made that decision, it's going to happen, right? A plan B is a plan for failure.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, you're literally planning in your mind to fail. Like, that's what a plan B is. Once you've done that, I think your chances of failure have now exponentially increased.
Yeah. Now, I don't want our listeners to think that you don't have a fallback, right? You definitely have to have an oh shit plan.
No, I'm sorry. For me, there is no the fallback. It's another word for plan B.
No. But what I mean by a fallback is if you're taking a certain avenue and it doesn't work out, right? Like we just said, you have 6 different avenues that you're working on in your business, and you decide to go all in on one avenue and it doesn't work out. Just understand what the next plan is.
Oh yeah,
And,
sure.
What I mean by no plan Bs is like there's no option for failure, right? There's just an option to pivot.
Exactly.
That's it, right? You got to be a chameleon, right? You got to change your colors. You got to change your tone. You got to change your approach, right? You got to
you have to be fluid.
You got to put yourself out there. Like before this, I would never go on camera. How many times have we talked about it, right? Before job.
Now you love it. See, look at you.
No, I'm still getting used to it. I'm still getting used to it, but look, I understood that in order to grow Jobtable, this is what it is, right? So again, no plan Bs. Let's go, right? You can't be hesitant, right? You got to jump into it, right? You got to be, again, getting back to it, right? My word of the day, being open-minded, right? You need to be open-minded. And this goes for anybody, and I say it for myself, right? Like you said, Costa, you say me and Charlie are successful. I can't tell you how many times I still go and sit down with people and ask for their advice, right? Open-minded,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
Open-minded,
100%.
right? You got to always be open-minded.
This is going to come off very harsh, but you guys know there's a very personal story that I hold dear to my heart. It's one of the most crucial lessons I've ever learned in my life. And you guys have heard the story. I'm not going to tell the story today, but essentially the point and the moral of the story and the lesson is that nobody gives a fucking shit about you. Okay? And don't ever forget it.
True.
Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. And I don't mean that literally. Of course, your mother, your wife, your family loves you. But you have to treat your business and your life as if no one loves you and no one gives a fucking shit about you. Okay? And the reason you need to look at your business and your life like that is that one day you will stumble and you will fall and you will fall hard. And if you're depending on others to pick you up, you're going to turn around and no one's going to be there. So you always have to be ready. And that's, I think, what Johnny's ultimately saying is not necessarily a plan B, but you always have to be ready for that stumble when it comes, because it will come. And be ready to pivot, adjust, whatever you need to do, because there will be nobody there to save you.
Yeah, and you can't point any fingers at anyone when
No.
you stumble other than the man in the mirror.
And you know what? COVID was a great example of that. Going back to kind of what we were talking about, businesses. There's a business that I'm very close to. It's a restaurant, and everybody was complaining, and not to get political about this. When all the restaurants were told that they could no longer operate, the large majority of these restaurants, these were mom and pop shops that had been around for a long time. They closed their doors within months. They were gone and never to be heard from again. But there's one specific Greek restaurant that not only pivoted, but to this day is thriving because of COVID. And what they actually did is they pumped all kinds of money into advertising their business to be a takeout restaurant only. They had all kinds of sales. They had music playing outside. And to this day, they no longer have a dine-in section. And I asked the guy, why? How come you guys don't do dine-in? He goes, what the fuck am I going to pay a waitress for? I'm going to have customers come in. Some of them complain. Some of them, they cause a fuss for no reason. So now he goes, our business has actually doubled. And we don't have to deal with anybody coming in and sitting down in the restaurant. So I look at those guys, and it actually reminds me of me and Johnny. Me and Johnny almost got absolutely destroyed through COVID. But we never worked so hard for those 2-3 months where we kind of, went after all essentially deemed work and completely changed our business, right? And we promised ourselves that we would never let anybody dictate what we can and can't do. So it's really a fight or flight situation where are you going to sit there and point fingers and cry and say, oh, well, my business failed because the government told me I can't operate? Or are you already going to be prepared for that stumble and say, no, I'm prepared for this and I'm going to get out of it? Because at the end of the day, like I said, no one gives a fucking shit about you.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, too, just an important note I just want to add there. Not to say that you won't have failures, right? Like I said, you'll take a certain path or you'll try to pivot and you failed. But don't let that beat you up, because that's also a lesson, right? A lot of people go to school to learn this shit, right? But the real world is very different than what you can learn in a classroom, right? So you got to look at whatever failed as a lesson, right? And really learn from it, right? Because a lot of people, they'll fail and be like, see, I told you, I'm just not meant to do this. No, it was just a failure. Pick your fucking self back up, right? Why did you fail? What steps did you take? Okay? What are you going to do to not make that same mistake again? Learn from that failure and come back stronger, right? I saw an article today that said, I believe it was the guy from Dyson. He tried 53 times before the Dyson vacuum took off, right? The guy leveraged himself, to the tits. He had no more money left. Everybody was looking at him like, oh, this is just a crazy inventor, right? But I guarantee you, there's people that look at Dyson that don't know the story and was like, they look at him like, oh, he's lucky. He had a good invention. The guy tried 53 fucking times. Again, getting back to no plan Bs. That guy was determined to build the best fucking vacuum, and, you look at it now and it's, everybody knows what Dyson is, right?
Actually, a few years ago, I was in the Bahamas and in Nassau, and a yacht, super yacht, owned by the owner of Dyson. I can't remember his name. It was like a $50 million yacht.
See, and if I'm not mistaken, that time that it hit, he was like 48 years old, and supposedly, he was trying since. Again, I might be butchering this. But I think he was trying since his mid to late 20s to come up with this invention, right? So again, it's all about pivoting. It's all about, you fall on your face. What did I do wrong? Learn from it, right? Those are real life lessons in business that nobody can ever teach you. No professor, can ever teach you. Nobody, again, I know we all read books, right? You can read a lot and they'll give you a lot of insight. But again, there's nothing more valuable than going through it, right? And I get back to that chart. Yeah, and I go back to that chart, right? What success looks like. A lot of people think it's just a graph that goes like this, right? And then what success all actually looks like, and it's just squiggly lines all over, right? So open-minded, right? Look at what you've done well, what you've done wrong, and if you're trying to grow your business, give yourself some realistic goals, some realistic targets, right? And be open-minded to implement anything that will be able to give you the tools to reach that goal.
Another way I look at stuff like this, and maybe this is the naive side of being an entrepreneur, because I think that's a very actual critical component. To be an entrepreneur, you got to be a little bit naive to like just do this thing, whatever it is, right? And thinking you're just going to kill it and do good. But I think that's you kind of need that. But keeping it to the trades, right? And let's just use like plumbing, right? Like you're not doing anything revolutionary, right? So think about how many other successful plumbing companies there are, right? Let's say you're starting off like, two guys in a truck. And how many plumbing companies would you say are doing over like, I don't know, 5-10 million a year? Thousands? Like across Canada and the US?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Easily in the thousands.
Easily.
Like being conservative.
Yeah, that's, right?
So with that being said, the way I look at this stuff is like, okay, I'm doing something that's not revolutionary. There's others doing it, right? So that means behind those companies are human beings doing it. These human beings, they're living on the same planet I am, breathing the same air I breathe, utilizing the same hours in a day that I am, same energy resources in the world. So if those human beings can get to 5-10 million a year, that means there is literally zero reason why I can't. Unless those are like super beings and like non-humans, like I'm sorry, there's no reason why you can't do it as well.
Yeah, and it's funny, sorry, Charlie, and it's funny because a lot of people look at me and Charlie sometimes, and we get so pissed when we hear this, where it's like, oh, you guys are lucky. We're lucky. What do you mean we're lucky? No, we're not lucky. We just put our fucking head.
Has someone actually said you're lucky?
Yeah, all the time. Like, oh, you guys are lucky. Lucky.
Who the hell are these
lucky?
people?
What about when me and Charlie at the beginning we were in debt while we're paying our guys, let's just say $2,000 a week, and we're paying ourselves $500, and we're looking at each other, is this fucking worth it? It's the grit, like it's the determination, right? You got to be determined. We looked at everything. Right? We didn't inherit contacts. You know what I mean? Charlie's father didn't own a construction company. My dad didn't own one. So it comes back to everything we built it off our backs. So again, no plan Bs. Like you said, Costa, like that's such a great point that you put out, that it's like, how many companies do 5 to 10 million a year? Why can't you do it?
Look, my dad went to the store and never came back. But I'm glad, Costa, I'm glad you brought up what you just did, because that actually proves my point about what I said, is that you need a good product. That's the number one question you need to answer yes to. And the reason I say that is because I specifically remember when me and Johnny were starting iPlum, how many people looked at me and said, hey, have you picked up a phone book and looked at how many plumbing companies are in Toronto and the GTA? I said, no, I didn't. I said, well, you should probably take a look, because I think you're wasting your time. So I actually picked up a phone book, the Yellow Pages, when they were still a thing and they were still around. And there was over 160 plumbing companies, okay, in the GTA alone. When I looked at that, my immediate reaction and thought was, what the fuck are we even thinking here? Like, who are we? Two young punks that just finished their apprenticeship, got their licenses. How do we even stack up against these 150 plus companies? We don't have a chance. We don't have a shot in hell. But that's exactly my point, that it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. We have a good product. Plumbing is a good product, okay? Undoubtedly. So in order for us to succeed like we have, everything just relied on advertising, building a rapport, building trust, and doing jobs in the right way. So everything just comes back to you. And are you going to own it? Are you going to seize it? And obviously, even entertaining the fact that it's got anything to do with luck is just, it's a waste of time. But people are going to be people. That's fine, right? But to me, it just goes to show you that it all comes down to you. It's on your shoulders. How bad do you want it? Do you want to fucking win this game, or you don't want to win this game, and you're not willing to?
And what do you want to do too, right? We've talked about this before as well. It's like, we all have the same hours, right? You want to start a plumbing company, and let's say the analogy I like to use is, okay, you have like 12 working hours in a day. Are you going to spend those hours building up, let's say, a convenience store, or are you spending those same 12 hours building the next Walmart? Right? So
I love when you said that.
What are you trying to do? Like what? So depending, if you're a convenience store, those 12 hours are going to look very different than if you're trying to do a Walmart, right? So you have to, back to goals, right? Kind of coming full circle here, like having that goal of like, I want to be the next Walmart. Like that means my hours are going to look very different than if I'm starting up the local convenience store here. Right? We can apply that to any business.
And anybody listening too, like, don't take this as in, it's like, I made $1 million in revenue last year, so now I want to double it. That may not be a realistic goal for you, right? Like, you really have to know, like, where you land and, like, the size of your company, and just set realistic goals. You know what I mean? Just start slow, because it's better that you set a goal that you can achieve and maybe shatter, rather than setting something that's completely unrealistic and not even getting close to it, and then being discouraged at the end of the year. Right?
Yeah, and that's where I also come back to, you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. Because especially in business, when it comes to business, when you transfer that into business, when you're crawling, you need to master crawling, right? You don't go to walking without mastering crawling, because if something happens, again, that success, the ups and downs. And let's just say you jump to walking and you get hit back down, right? If you haven't mastered crawling, you're not going to know what to do, right? So that's where these realistic goals come into play, right? You need to master climbing up the ladder, right? Because what you notice a lot of times, and I'm not saying all the time, there are the anomalies, but what you notice a lot of times is those companies that go from 0 to 100 overnight, they run into a lot of issues, right? And those are what a lot of people call the growing pain issues, right? Where, let's just say the customer service drops off drastically, right? Because they blew up so fast that you can't even get somebody on the phone. You don't have a good response time. So many avenues there, right? So again, crawling before you can walk, but mastering crawling, right? And when you start walking, you start mastering the walk, right? And once you master the walk and you start running, okay, and you start mastering the running, then you move into sprinting, and you know what I mean? Like you got to master every aspect of that business, right? And a lot of times when you do that, finding that one avenue that can help you explode, that's right underneath your nose, because you've mastered every step of the crawl to the walk to the run, it's going to be very easy to pivot, right? So really understanding your business. Again, word of the day, getting back to the open-mindedness, no plan Bs. All these things are very important, and especially preparing now in December, right? This is a month I find is definitely the month of reflecting, right? I think everybody can agree, right? Even down to the accountants, when they're letting you know how you did this year compared to last year. It's definitely a big reflection month, right?
Hold on, John. Your accountant should not be the one telling you, by the way, what you did last year to this
My
year?
account,
I know we had this before.
my account
but you should
doesn't
know
because
that.
I use Jobtable. Thank you very much.
There, thank you. No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying for you. I'm speaking to whoever's listening.
Yeah.
If you have to have your accountant tell you how you did, big red flag.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
100 million percent, 100 million percent, right? And that's why, like, we say it we've said it multiple times on the show already. But the reality is, a lot of these people in the industry, they rely on their accountant, right? And it's unfortunate, but
Yeah, we got to double back on that topic maybe another time.
Yeah.
But just to wrap this, Charlie, what you were saying about the yellow pages starting off and like seeing all the plumbing companies, I feel like that's the same for any like new entrepreneur, right? And I remember me early days, you have like these business ideas, you go on Google and you see like a ton of companies and you're like deflated, right? Like, oh, fuck, like they've already done it. Like, what's the next idea? It's funny now, I guess maybe experience and, all this, but now if I were to have an idea and, I go on Google and I see a bunch of companies, it's like my mouth waters. It's like, I love it because now it's like, okay, I can skip the whole like product market fit.
You opened my eyes to that.
Business plan
Yeah.
stuff. Because now what that tells me is like, okay, there's other companies doing what I'm doing. Check. They're making money. Beautiful. There's customers paying them already. Amazing. So now I just have to come in, like find your little pocket. It's much easier to sell into a business like that. So it's like, again, back to like, those are humans already doing it. I'm a human. Like, let's fucking go.
I stole that from you actually, because honestly, I was one of those people that looked at it like,
So was I.
And that's
So was
the
I.
feeling, really. You feel deflated and you feel defeated. And this great idea that you thought you had is now like the worst fucking possible idea. I'm like, oh, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But when you said that, you're like, oh, what do you mean? Like that's a great thing that there's 150 companies out there. I'm like, why? How is that a good thing? That's just competition. Because that just means that these are all successful companies and they're all working together. So what's the difference whether there's
There's a market for
150
it.
or 151?
Yeah.
There's a huge
To
market.
me, it's way riskier to do something like revolutionary and brand new that doesn't exist. Like that's a lot of risk. Now you got to like create the market on your own.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole different.
But it's funny because it's really
game.
it's not a difficult concept to understand too. Because now when I speak to people and they say, I want to try something, but there's already 50 softwares that are doing it. I'm like, that's great. And I tell them what you once upon a time told me, and they get it right away. They're like, fuck, I never looked at it like that. It's a very simple concept, but it makes complete sense. Don't let it intimidate you. Don't let it deflate you, discourage you. It's a good thing.
yeah, shout out to Costa for that.
Yeah, you're the
That's
man.
one of my philosophies, man. I would only do a business that's very competitive.
Yeah, you open mine and Charlie's eyes. I remember even, I know we built Jobtable internally for us, but when we saw that it was powerful and we should take it to market, and we looked at who's on the market, and that's how you know it's also organic, because we didn't go and look at what other companies were doing. We just, did whatever we thought was going to help us. But I remember you saying that when we were going to decide to package this up and take it to market, and I was like, but man, there's so many other companies that are doing this, and it's like, exactly what you said. It's like, yeah, that's perfect. There's a market for it. It's a multi-million-dollar, industry, right? So all we need to do is just, get in, kind of,
Find your pocket.
like kind of spread your
Find your
wings a little
pocket,
bit,
find your audience.
and if it's a $500 million a year industry, right? You just want to come in and let's say, okay, I just want 5%, right? And then when you look at 5%, it's like, holy fuck, that's a big business.
Yeah, and
also
small
that's from a
slice
piece of-
a
that's a
big
piece of pie.
Is a very good business.
Yeah, and that's also a pie that's obviously growing too every year, right? Because a lot more people are getting into software. So that pie is a growing pie.
Yeah, so I want to give a big shout out to Costa. He deserves it. That was good.
Yeah, and
so he's
one more thing-
staying open-minded.
One last thing I'll say about this topic is staying in your lane is probably one of the things I've always done since I was a kid. I've just been blessed with just the ability to not give a shit what anybody else is doing. But also that doesn't mean like you can't glance in other people's lanes. And what I mean by that, it's like, it's okay to look and see what other people are doing, where they're succeeding and where they've failed in the past, right? Because if you can avoid making mistakes yourself and you can learn from other people's mistakes, because I guarantee you are going to make mistakes and you're going to hopefully learn from them. But if you can avoid some of the mistakes because other people have done them and already gone through those trials and tribulations for you, then by all means, glance in their lane and learn from it. But it's important to stay in your lane. Don't worry about the other 150, 300,000 companies that are out there. They're succeeding. They're doing their thing. Focus on what you're doing. Focus on your company. How are you going to grow your company? Because the second you start caring too much about what other people are doing, you're taking your focus away from the important things. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well said.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. This was a fun topic. I love talking. I didn't expect it to go in here, be entrepreneurship and mindset goals. So yeah, good stuff there. You want to switch gears here?
Yeah.
I know this. So one topic that especially you guys deal with regularly is handling people, specifically like inspectors on projects and how to manage, how to deal with them. So Charlie, kick it off.
Yeah, you know what? This is something that I keep seeing in the comments. Guys, they just want us to talk about this. This is something that I probably deal with a lot more than Johnny, but Johnny's dealt with his fair share as well in the past. The reason this is an important topic is because one of the things I hear a lot from guys is like they have this negative like kind of feeling connected to inspections and inspectors in general, right? It's almost like you're worried, it's a nuisance, it's a pain in the ass. Unfortunately, it's necessary. It's part of the process. But I wanted to talk about this because I actually have like a very positive outlook on inspectors and inspections in general. And I think the reason is because I shifted my focus a long time ago and how I view them and how I where I see them on the scale of things. And what I mean by that is I couldn't care less about inspectors. Like they mean absolutely nothing to me. They're just necessary, right? We need them. It's for the government. It's for the permit. We have to have them come in and do their thing. But I treat it in the sense that, and I tell the general contractors this, and they always kind of get a kick out of it. But I tell them, I don't care what the inspector says. I'm testing everything for myself. You're my client. I could care less. This is my business. I'm testing these pipes and I'm going to make sure they are 1000% because I'm putting my name and my company name. I don't need an inspector coming in here to tell me that it's okay. We need that, obviously, just to sign off on the permit. But every company, you got to get this negative thing out of your mind. Treat every job. If you know what you're doing, if you're an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, if you're a rough carpenter and you've installed all your trusses, and you have to make sure all your joist hangers are there. You don't need an inspector to come and point something out that you did wrong. You should have the confidence that you've done the job correctly. And oh yeah, by the way, I have to call this guy. It's a formality. Come on in, and and the first thing I do when I step on a job, and this is probably the best advice I can give people, when I step on a medium or larger size job, is I call the inspector and I book an inspection before we've even put in one piece of pipe or done any kind of work. And the reason I do that is because, number one, I want to introduce myself to the inspector. I want to tell them, look, this permit just came out. We have this job. We're starting. And I wanted to get onto the same page with you because I deal with hundreds of inspectors, okay, all over the place. And there's some code changes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And some inspectors just, they prefer certain things compared to others. So first thing I want to do is get on the same page, introduce myself, and just that introductory phone call, it honestly breaks down all kinds of barriers. They respect it, they appreciate it, and sometimes they'll even come to site and say, look, how do you want these lines to be tested? How do you want me to do this? Because I rather know now, because I don't want to argue with you. Even though I know I'm going to do it to code, you might come in and have a different preference. And I don't want it to be a pissing match. I want to be on the same page. So when you walk in, you're going to be blown away. Perfect, Charlie, this looks great. I love it. See you later. Half of the inspectors I deal with now, they don't even come to site anymore. They ask me for pictures and they get emailed, right? And that's because we just have a good rapport and I've gained their trust. So I think you really have to change your perception of these guys. If you know what you're doing, they should never be an issue. Do your job, do it properly, and get these guys on your side.
Yeah, well said.
You know, this reminds me of maybe like open this up a bit. It's like, you know, dealing with inspectors. And when you said like you like to, you know, get proactive, introduce yourself, and that kind of like sets the tone, right? It reminds me of one of my favorite books of all time, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think this is, if you haven't read that book, read it. I think it applies to, you know, just life in general, but especially a situation. Exactly. And so, you know, there's a lot of like really good principles in that book that can help you just like have better relationships with inspectors or just people in general, right? And the one that comes to mind is the principle of, and this is so powerful. I do this like at the grocery store all the time, but like remembering someone's name. Most popular word for a person is their own name. Right. So just think about, and I'm sure this has happened to you. It's happened to me all the time. Think about you know, you meet someone for the first time, say, hey, how are you? So usually after the average person, after like 10 minutes, you're going to forget that person's name. Right. So now think about how impactful it is when you meet that inspector now for the first time. And now let's say 3 months go by, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is, you see that guy again. It's like, hey, John, how are you? Like, you actually say his name. You're going to see him, like, pop up and, like, whoa, like, this guy remembered my name. And, like, he's automatically going to, like, have this next level of respect for you. And so, again, there's, like, so many of these principles. But, like, that one alone, I think, is so impactful.
Yeah, when it comes to inspectors, too, understand they just got a job to do as well. They got to sign off on it. But like Charlie said, too, you're putting your name on it. So, you know, it's very important, especially for the guys starting out, haven't been in business too long. You're going to always have inspections. So the best thing to do is to give your company, remember, like we talked about in, you know, prior episodes about wearing the crest, right? About wearing your company logo, right? It's the way you carry yourself. So Charlie has built incredible relationships with the inspectors. And that's just because the inspectors have been to multiple of our jobs and they start to understand the quality of work to the point where they start to trust. So now when we call inspectors, there's no worry at all. Like I remember, I can't tell you countless amount of times that I get a phone call and it's like, you know, fuck, I wonder what the inspector is going to say. It's like, what are you worried about? Right? It's like, well, you know, I just want to make sure that this passes. And it's like, it's going to pass with flying colors, right? Not only because we have that respect, but because, you know, we're not trying to cut a corner, right? And sometimes, yes, you will get into a job that it's a little bit more intricate, or like Charlie said, sometimes certain inspectors want to see different things, even though, you know, I see a lot of people getting into arguments with the inspectors because, you know, oh, what the code states this and the code states that. Well, that's why a lot of times it's good to have that initial conversation before you start, because if they want to see something a certain way and they believe it's better, unless you honestly think that it's going to jeopardize the system or structurally or the build or something like that, just, you know, again, it's the way you carry yourself, right? If you have respect for them, they're going to show you respect back. And a lot of times, these guys are really cool guys. It's just they have a job to do. And a lot of times, they're going to inspections where it's a hostile environment, right? And because they are the governing body of the city, if you're hostile towards them, they can make your life a living hell, right? So don't fear the inspector. The inspector is actually like, he's there doing his job to ensure that everything was done to code. So if, you know, like I know with plumbing, some guys want stacks filled up with water. Some guys want it done with air. Some guys want, you know, an underground drain, a ball test. Some guys, you know, they just want to see a level on it. But again, that's why, you know, Charlie, 9 times out of 10, if he doesn't know the inspector in that area, will call him, you know, just book the inspection. The inspector will call and say, no, I don't need you to come to site. Just wanted to introduce myself. This is what I'm doing. What do you want to see here? Right? Even though Charlie has all the experience and doesn't need, you know, his recommendations, but if he's a governing body, what does that hurt? And actually what happens, like I said, you start to build a rapport, right? And just like any other industry, these inspectors talk internally, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've seen it, even with the electrical side, right? Like with ESA, how many times these inspectors trust the electricians because they've seen their work for the last decade, right? They know they don't cut corners, right? So if anything, it's a plus for your company, right? And like you said, that's a really good reference for anybody that feels like they're struggling with this. Again, the holiday season is coming. Big recommendation. Grab How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Really good book to read, and it will change your approach on a lot of these things.
And keep in mind too, one more thing is a lot of the inspectors I talk to, they tell me these horror stories. Like, I went to site, like, you'll never believe what this guy did over here. You'll never believe what that guy did over there. And some of the stuff they tell me, like, is very hard to believe. Like, some of these guys, like, I don't even know how they call themselves plumbers. So you have to put yourself in these guys' shoes. When they first meet you and they don't know who you are, they're expecting to walk in and they're expecting a worst case scenario. So the second you've already kind of built that rapport with them because you've already called them before the job started, they now come on and now what I like to do is actually like hold their hand, not literally, but I hold their hand. I say, hey, this is what we're doing. Here's the drawings. Follow me. Let's go for a walk. Right. And I kind of just go step by step. This is it. That's where it's vented. This is being primed over here. And I literally break everything down and I leave them speechless. I don't give them a chance to even have any questions to ask me. So by doing that, they're now looking at you and saying, fuck, this guy's a pro, man. This guy knows, I don't have to worry about this guy because this is like a breath of fresh air. And that's actually, those are words that have been used with some of my foremans. Like, you guys are a breath of fresh air. I know I don't have to worry about you. So next time, just send me pictures. I trust you guys, right? So just keep that in mind. They're not bad people. Like Johnny said, they're just doing a job and they've seen the worst of the worst, okay? And if you're a good company, then you don't know what the worst of the worst is. You don't even understand that concept because it's not in your repertoire, right? And if you're one of those companies that fear inspectors because you are the worst of the worst, I can't help you. You need to get better. You need to do a better job because this should not be an issue, right? And the reference that Costa made to that book doesn't apply just for inspectors. This applies to dealing with your project managers, your estimators, your clients, anybody, just in life in general. You build that rapport with people, show them the respect that they deserve, and they'll show that respect back to you. And it will make your life and your business run a lot more smooth.
Yeah, so true. I think like sticking with inspectors, it's like a double-sided thing. It's like, yeah, obviously you need to like show great work, you followed code and whatever, but the other half is dealing with people, right? And like you said, I can see the whole inspection like being very hostile, right? And so when you understand people, and Charlie, like you're one of the best at this, but when you really like, take a step back and like try to understand like people, right? People are very emotional and they're motivated by pride in a lot of cases. So, in a situation like that, having arguments, it's never going to go in your favor. Like we're not wired like that. You have to understand and learn how to just deal with people in the most optimal way. And like it takes understanding like human behavior, psychology. And I keep referencing that book, but all these things are coming back because I've read it so many times, but such a good book. If you deal with inspectors, like that should be like mandatory reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just take the time to give a shout out to all the inspectors. Doesn't matter what province, what city, what state.
Yeah, show appreciation.
Show appreciation to them. And I'm telling you, they'll show appreciation back. And again, I know it's a little bit off topic, but highly recommend that book. That's a book that I remember.
We weren't sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored. I wish we were sponsored, but that's one of the books. That's one of the books that has helped me tremendously in business as well. It gives you an insight on, how to deal with everything from, your mother, your father, your neighbor, your clients, inspectors, anybody. And it's one of those books that you can literally highlight certain pages and leave, like little sticky notes. And you can go back and read it every year, and it really, really helps you on just how to deal with people. But again, getting back to the inspectors, big shout out to them. They also have a job to do just like we do. So, being transparent with them, showing respect, and like you said, just remembering their name, man. Like I can't tell you how far that goes, right? The guy shows up, you haven't seen him in 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Like, hey, Joe, how are you? It's like, oh, hey, like it much different, right? It's a much different environment, right?
And depending on where you are too, these guys are so understaffed, it's laughable, right? So just think about it like, who do you want to hire when you do a job in your own house? Do you want to hire the guy that you have to micromanage and kind of, you're constantly looking over his shoulder because, you paid a little less. You want to just make sure he's doing the right, or do you want to hire the guy that literally you don't even have to watch? You can just go to work, you're going to come home, the house is going to be clean, the job will be done properly. They're looking at you in the same exact way. Like these guys can barely get to the majority of their inspections every day. So do you think that they want to walk into a job site that's an absolute disaster and they're now questioning everything you've done? Or do they want to walk into a place where like, wow, this is incredible, thank you so much? Because you cannot imagine how far that's going to go, how long that goes.
Yeah, totally. All right, boys. I think we're good. Anything else to add here?
Yeah, I always like to say again, guys, if there's any topic you guys would like for us to speak about, like the inspector topic today, guys, feel free to drop us a line in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll be more than happy to discuss it.
This was fun. And last plug, jobtable.com. Simplest way to grow and manage your construction business. Do check it out. There's a 14-day free trial. And see you next week.
Take care,
Ciao,
guys.
Bye.